Good colleagues, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the man who really needs no introduction, the 139th President of the APA. Chance favors the prepared mind. That saying is particularly apt in considering the many challenges and opportunities that have marked Dr. Jeste's tenure as APA President. Now, each president has been confronted by issues particular to our profession: stigma, anti-psychiatry groups, insufficient access to care, funding for research and education, to name but a few. And none have complained of having too few challenges during their tenure. But this year has been extraordinary. Dilip has taken on several major tasks, any one of which could occupy a presidential year. And all will affect our association not only this year, but for many years or decades to come. Recognizing the potential impact of Jay Scully's retirement at the end of this year, Dilip appointed a search committee composed of a diverse group of members chaired by past President Paul Applebaum, and charged them to conduct a wide search to identify potential candidates. Dilip also set a timeline that allowed the identification of an excellent successor who could work collaboratively for some months with our medical director CEO to ensure a seamless and successful transition. The DSM process also provides another example. It's been almost 2 decades since the publication of the previous edition, and the process for the development of DSM-5 was extensive, involving hundreds of researchers and clinicians, reviews and comments from thousands of scientists, as well as interested lay people from around the world. In fact, Dilip himself participated in the study of the research agenda for DSM-5, published in 2007. As the final report was being prepared, Dilip became the conductor of this great symphony, resembling Mahler's Ninth, ensuring that the process would not lag, while also ensuring that each recommendation was carefully reviewed by leaders in the association, and that there would be appropriate educational materials and programs for its use, so that this transition, too, would be seamless. When the implementation of APA's new CPT code resulted in particularly bad behavior on the part of insurance companies, denying patients and clinicians appropriate access to and reimbursement for care, Dilip led the board beyond outraged rhetoric to assertive action, filing suit and demonstrate that we no longer will tolerate such discrimination. There are many more, but time does not permit my giving the examples. What was the background and preparation of this president that prepared him for such challenges? He grew up in a small town in India, was the first physician in his family. A bookworm, as a teenager he read voraciously, was particularly taken by Freud's interpretation of dreams, as well as by books for lay readers on more human behavior. He was fascinated by mystery fiction, especially Agatha Christie's detection and problem solving. At age 17, he entered medical school, studying the mysteries of the body, and then the mysteries of the mind as a psychiatry resident in Mumbai. He viewed the United States through books and movies as a mecca. But this vision was tempered by the reality of his first assignment in Newark, New Jersey, a challenging and more stressful environment in a less than welcoming culture. Clearly a different and less romantic picture than West Side Story. He went on to residency at Cornell, training in neurology at George Washington University, and a neuroscience fellowship at NIH. His New York and NIH mentors and colleagues represented a who's who of psychiatric leaders. During this time, his wife, Sonali, completed training and work in child psychiatry at Johns Hopkins, while Dilip drove between Rockville and St. Elizabeth Hospital, taking their daughters, Shefali and Neelam, to school and activities. But it wasn't to last. Lou Jug recruited him to University of California at San Diego, and there Dilip has held multiple leadership roles: an endowed chair, distinguished professor, director of geriatric psychiatry, director of an institute for research on aging, and my favorite, director of an innovation center. His scientific accomplishments are outstanding and world-class, both broad and deep. Almost 600 articles, a dozen books and chapters integrating neurobiological discoveries with psychosocial aspects of adaptation and coping, from psychosis in the elderly to successful aging. And his publications are really important. He has been listed by the Institute of Scientific Information as one of the world's most cited authors, an elite group comprising less than 0.5% of all publishing researchers of the past 2 decades. And he was elected to the Institute of Medicine, the National Academy of Sciences, one of less than 60 psychiatrists to be so elected. Now, just listing his national and international awards and accolades would take us till tomorrow. In addition to being a continuously funded NIH Distinguished Scientist, he has been a generative mentor, ensuring the development of young scientists. Work is what he loves, a different kind of detective work, trying to understand the interesting, exciting, and most complicated computer in the world. And it meshes very closely with his personal life and his personality. Dileep and Sonali are particularly proud of their daughters who have followed in their parents' footsteps, becoming physicians, contributing to discovery and clinical excellence in autism research and care, and in pediatric oncology. Dileep goes any weekend that he's available to Los Angeles, where they can enjoy their grandsons, now aged 5 and 3. His own experience as an immigrant, as well as the experiences of his wife and daughters, is reflected in his intense commitment to diversity and inclusiveness, and his outreach to members of underrepresented groups. And he listens carefully, thoughtfully, and critically, wanting to have the best information prior to making a decision. Respectful of others' input and opinions, he is not swayed by fads or inappropriate emotion, and is careful to consider what might be unintended negative consequences, always protective of the association in the field. One of the tenets of leadership is that if no one is angry at you, you must be doing something wrong. Yet it is a reflection of Dileep's remarkable modesty, warmth, and other directedness that he has earned and maintained the deep esteem and admiration of colleagues at all levels. APA has been favored through the chance and timing of elections. How fortunate we are to have a leader of his wisdom, integrity, and determination to complete the important tasks and to pave the way not only for his successor as president, but for the future of our association and our profession. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming our 139th president, Dileep Jeste.
Thank you, Carolyn. That was a very kind introduction. And I must say that you yourself, as a past president of the APA, deputy medical director, and in so many other ways, you have been a role model for the rest of us about how to serve an organization and the field as a whole. I'm really indebted to all your help, to me and to other people. Many years ago, I migrated to the US with 3 partners: my wife Sonali, my love for psychiatry, and my Indian accent. And I'm happy to report that none of these partners has deserted me so far. For someone born, raised, and educated thousands of miles away, even becoming an APA member seemed like a fantasy, let alone being its president. I still have a sense of disbelief at how lucky I have been. This past year has been an incredibly busy but an amazing year and a great privilege. I can summarize my feelings in 3 words: gratitude, pride, and contentment. My gratitude extends to all the APA members for your trust and faith in my ability to lead this wonderful organization. This is the largest psychiatric organization in the world, representing 33,000 psychiatrists, and it's the oldest medical organization in the US. The APA is truly a microcosm of the country. The country's motto, E pluribus unum, means one out of many, and it reflects both on its diversity and unity. America is not really a melting pot. It is more like a salad bowl or a cultural mosaic in which different groups retain their uniqueness but serve a common goal. The same applies to the APA too. APA members differ in age, gender, ethnicity, subspecialty, type of practice, political views, whatever. Yet, we are all united around the common goal of promoting the highest level quality of care for our patients. The APA governance is a three-legged stool. The three legs are the Board of Trustees, of which the President is the chair, the Assembly, which represents grassroots democracy, starting at the district branch level, and the APA staff. These three components need to work together to serve our members, who in turn serve our patients. A year ago, as President-elect, I had vowed to focus on unity within the APA. And I'm very proud to say that during the past year, we have had exemplary unity among the Board of Trustees, Assembly, and the staff. Without this unity, we would not have accomplished what we did. We also maintained successful partnerships with other organizations like AMA and NAMI. I hope and expect that this unity will continue into the future. I want to thank several specific individuals. I am grateful to my predecessor, John Oldham, and my successor, Jeff Lieberman. They have been incredibly helpful during the past year. They both were long-term friends and distinguished colleagues previously, and we have now come even closer. I owe a lot to my mentors, two of whom must be watching this function from above, the late Drs. N.S. Vahia and Richard J. Wyatt. I also want to thank my colleagues, trainees, and staff at the University of California, San Diego for allowing me to spend time with the APA. I want to especially acknowledge my chair, Louis Judd. Last but not least, I want to express my appreciation for my family and friends. My wife, Sonali, is truly a superwoman. An accomplished child psychiatrist and a wonderful mother, she does it all. I feel lucky to be a man standing behind a successful woman. Actually, make it 3 successful women, including our 2 daughters. As Caroline said, Shafali is a child neurologist and Neelam is completing residency in pediatrics. Between them, these 3 ladies have participated in 4 marathons and 4 60-mile walks for breast cancer research during the last few years. They are my friends, philosophers, guides, and bosses. The uneven gender balance in our family has recently been corrected with the addition of Richard, Nishal, and Kiran. In addition to their day jobs, Richard and Shafali run a non-profit foundation called ACEING Autism, ACEING. This foundation teaches tennis to kids with autism with the goal of improving their motor skills and, more importantly, social skills. Finally, I want to mention several other members of my family and friends who are here: Vijay, Reshma, Vikram, Maya, Leena, and their spouses. I feel proud to be a psychiatrist. Well, psychiatry is not the most lucrative medical discipline. Studies show that psychiatrists are at or near the top of all medical specialties in terms of job satisfaction. This job satisfaction is related to caring for some of the most disenfranchised individuals in the world. During the past year, we accomplished 2 major tasks with long-term impact. The first one, as Caroline mentioned, was completion, approval, and publication of DSM-5, and second was selection of a new CEO or medical director. Regarding the first one, DSM, I've been closely involved with the DSM-5 almost since its inception. I was a member of the original task force and chair of the neurocognitive disorders work group. The work on DSM-5 has involved pro bono efforts by several hundred experts in mental health from around the world. There has been unprecedented public interest and media scrutiny of DSM-5. My task as a president was to ensure finalization of the criteria and text and their approval by the Board of Trustees. This required coordination and collaboration involving DSM-5 task force, 13 different work groups, each with 10 members, 4 independent review committees, and experts in criteria, coding, and field trials. These groups did not always agree with one another. On top of that, the APA made available online drafts of the DSM-5 for the outside community to comment on. We received a total of 23,000 public comments. So the question is, how do you bring these diverse stakeholders to the table and reach a consensus? We formed a summit group in which representatives from these various bodies came together. We had several meetings as well as long conference calls, sometimes with 35 people online. It was not easy and not always pretty. There was plenty of debate, as there should be, but we all wanted the same thing, which was a clinical diagnostic manual that reflected the best available science today. The DSM-5 is now published. This is it. And we should all really be proud of this. I want to give a big hand to David Kupfer, who is the chair of the DSM-5 task force, and also to Daryl Regier, the vice chair. And this really also gives credit to, as I said, the hundreds of people who have been involved in development and review of the DSM-5. We hope that the DSM-5 will lead to more accurate diagnosis, better access to mental health services, and improved patient outcomes. Of course, with scientific advances, it will need revisions. Science should never be stagnant, and neither should medicine. Now, regarding the second task, selection of the next CEO or medical director. As I mentioned earlier, Jay Scully will be stepping down later this year after 12 years of incredible service. Jay has led the association through the making of the DSM-5, enactment of the Mental Health Parity Act, reorganization of the APA and its components, and close collaboration with various other medical and other societies. I think Jay has done a better job of balancing the budget than our government and Congress have. Jay leaves the APA in a much stronger position than when he joined. We'll miss his leadership, enthusiasm, and commitment to our members and the patients. Last year, I formed a search committee including major leaders in psychiatry and chaired by Paul Applebaum, a distinguished past president of the APA. The selection process progressed effectively. The Board of Trustees has selected an outstanding successor to Jay in Saul Levine. Saul has a long history with the APA. He has served on the APA delegation to the AMA, the Political Action Committee Board, and the Scientific Program Committee. Saul is currently the interim director of the District of Columbia Department of Health. Previously, he was AMA's vice president for science, medicine, and public health. Saul's expertise in electronic health information exchanges and implementation of the Affordable Care Act, plus his proven leadership of large organizations, will come in handy as we adapt to and take a leadership role in mental health care reform. In addition to these two major tasks, the APA did a remarkable job last year in many other ways. Let me summarize just a few of those activities and accomplishments. One important task has involved fighting the insurance companies, which continue to discriminate against people with mental illnesses by downgrading their benefits. We have won several of these battles, but we will not rest until there is real mental health parity. APA also continued to strongly advocate for better Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement for psychiatric care, and we will remain vigilant as the healthcare reform unfolds. We all have been deeply touched and saddened by the senseless gun violence in Tucson, Aurora, Newton, and elsewhere. The APA and the district branches stepped forward to provide critical help to the local communities. There is sometimes an unfortunate tendency in some quarters to equate mental illness with violence. But we must remind others that 96% of the violent crimes are unrelated to mental illness. People with mental illnesses are far more likely to be victims rather than perpetrators of crime. At the same time, we must improve the access to care for people with serious mental illnesses. I recently formed an APA-led coalition of physician organizations, including AMA, that will develop recommendations for enhancing mental health care as well as reducing the stigma of violence. Along these lines, one important issue relates to identifying young people with mental illness who are at a high risk of violence. The American Psychiatric Foundation has sponsored an innovative program called Typical or Troubled. This program has trained 60,000 teachers and patients and parents on how to recognize differences between typical teen behavior and mental illness. This program has connected with over 900,000 students across the US. Another critical area is diversity. As the population of the country becomes increasingly more diverse, so must the APA and its leadership. Anil Prem has led APA's Omna on Tour program to reach out to underserved rural communities. It has focused on improving access to health care for depressed women living in poverty. Among other bragging points for the APA, the American Journal of Psychiatry under Bob Friedman continues to be one of the top medical journals in the world. Last year, it had 4 out of 10 articles on the New England Journal of Medicine list of papers with the highest clinical relevance. No other journal had more than 1. The psychiatric news has made major strides too. Its daily email alerts and recent series of articles on DSM-5 have been highly successful and popular. Recently, the Psychiatric News won an Excel Award from the Association of Media and Publishing. Jeff Borenstein's Healthy Minds public television series has produced nearly 40 episodes on topics like military mental health, bipolar, schizophrenia, autism, suicide prevention. This series has reached 60% of US households and has received 2 Emmy nominations and 4 Telly Awards. In terms of international members of APA, their numbers have increased significantly this year. Also, for the first time, we will have international members on some of APA's councils and committees. Jeff Lieberman appointed a work group on members in training and early career psychiatrists that will recommend ways of expanding the involvement of these leaders of tomorrow. This APA year is ending on a high note with this history-making annual meeting. Of course, we are celebrating the publication of the DSM-5, but also for the first time ever, we will have a past president of the country, Bill Clinton, to be our keynote speaker. Although he will not be here in person because of his ill health, his presence signifies the rising stature of our organization and our field. 3 Nobel laureates also will be here. And the theme of the meeting, as I said earlier, is pursuing wellness across a lifespan. we have separate tracks for all major subspecialties in psychiatry, highlighting their special status within the APA. There are invited sessions on international medical graduates, psychiatrists in the media, and the radical caucus. That is diversity. I would not trade this past year of APA presidency for anything else, even though it included countless hours of work and my share of sleepless nights. For any of you who want to be APA president, I strongly recommend this job. You won't make much money, but there are lots of benefits. Sometimes people ask me, what is the best part of APA presidency? Was it the honor of being invited to the White House to join President Obama for the announcement of the BRAIN initiative? Will it be introducing Bill Clinton tomorrow? While those certainly are unforgettable moments, the most rewarding part for an APA president is to hear a regular member say, thanks for what you and the APA are doing. That is priceless. Moving forward, the future of psychiatry and of the APA is bright. Sure, we'll go through some difficult times, but we will come out ahead. We have succeeded in the past and we will succeed again. I have every confidence in the leadership of Jeff Lieberman, Paul Sommergrad, and Saul Levine in taking the APA to the next level during the coming years. Personally, as I end my year of APA presidency, I'm looking forward to returning full-time to my own research, teaching, and clinical work at University of California, San Diego. My family, my colleagues, and staff will be glad to have me back. I hope they are glad to have me back. As a geriatric psychiatrist, my work in recent years has focused on successful aging and positive psychiatry. People often debate about when does life really begin. To me, this is a no-brainer. Life begins at age 50. Studies show that quality of well-being follows a U-shaped curve. It's pretty high in the early 20s, then starts going down, hits rock bottom at 50. That's the time of midlife crisis. Then it starts going up again. So that in the early 80s, the subjective quality of life and quality of well-being is similar to what it is in the early 20s. The main reason for that is the change in attitudes and behaviors. Quality of life and psychosocial functioning depend less on physical health and more on positive psychological traits like resilience, optimism, social engagement, and wisdom. Successful aging is not an oxymoron, but it's an evidence-based scientific fact. It has a biological basis. Some of the most exciting neuroscience research during the past 2 decades has shown conclusive evidence of neuroplasticity of aging. New synapses and even new neurons in some brain regions can form in older age, provided there is optimal physical and psychosocial stimulation. At UC San Diego, we have just begun research on successful aging among people with serious mental illnesses, and our ultimate goal is to develop interventions that will make successful aging a norm rather than an exception among people with serious mental illnesses. I expect that the future role of psychiatry will be much broader than treating psychiatric symptoms. It will seek to enhance well-being of people with mental or physical illnesses. That is positive psychiatry. We'll learn more about brain processes which are responsible for these traits, and we'll seek new ways to promote resilience, optimism, and wisdom through psychotherapeutic interventions. Thank you for giving me this opportunity of a lifetime to lead our charge this past year. Robert Baden-Powell initiated the scouting movement with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. In his last letter to the Scouts, he wrote, leave this world a little better than when you found it. I think this should apply to presidencies too. Am I leaving the APA a little better than I found it? That will be for the others to judge. However, I do know that the APA and all of you have left me much better than when you found me. For that, I'll be eternally grateful. Thank you and best wishes to you all.